Adam is a kind of special representative. He's one of the founding members, I guess you could say, founders of InTogether, this group.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Adam and I work, his platform is something that some materials I've made is on, and he's just a really forward-thinking guy, super interested in a lot of parts of education, and I think the most important thing is he really cares. He cares about making a difference, right? He does things the right way, and so today I think his topic fits what's inside his heart. So here you go.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm quite offended that there are so many empty spaces here. Do I smell bad? I think, yeah? No, you can smell me better from there? Okay, all right. Okay, so I'll get started here. So, just first of all, who's an English teacher here? Okay, everybody. Who's been doing it for more than 10 years? Wow, most of you, okay. More than 15? 20 or more? 30?
Not there.
Well, okay, a couple there. I'm just coming up on 20 myself next week. And is this working? Yeah, you can hear well? All right. No more out of you. All right. Yeah, so for me, over the last 20 years, I've had lots of periods of kind of deep insecurity, thinking like, what am I doing? Am I really a teacher? Am I really helping anyone? You know, we'd have students come to the school, study English. Some of them got good, you know, and some of them didn't. Some of them would just disappear, and I'd be like, well, what was that all about? And I've often kind of, you know, had that feeling of, is what I'm doing really meaningful? I don't know does anyone else feel the same way? Yeah, sometimes?
Yeah. Especially in February.
Especially in February when they start leaving, yeah. But having done it for 20 years, and I'm sure a lot of you have had the same experience, I have times when students that I've been teaching since they were 3 come back to the school, and sometimes they just talk to me in Japanese, and English was not a part of their life, and sometimes they are. Sometimes, you know, English is, I had one student come back recently, and now she's a flight attendant, and that was her dream, and it was something that we helped her with. But in every case, what I have noticed is that time that the students spent with us, in contact, doing whatever, is something that they remembered and really affected them throughout their whole life. So that also has given me a deeper sense of responsibility. Whether they, you know, you get so focused on just their English skills or whatever, but there's so much more going on. They get so much more from their experiences with us. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Hopefully by the end of the presentation, I'll give you a few very practical things that you can use in your classes starting, you know, Monday. Ways that you can help your students to prepare more for life and become more well-adjusted people in general. So we'll be looking at social emotional learning. Who's familiar with this? Some people, yeah? Really quickly about me, I'm the author of the Awesome Adventures series and the Awesome Phonics Adventures. Some of the themes that I talk about today actually do come up in our readers, although that's not, you know, the main purpose. And I'm not talking about these things today. Also, a lot of you know me for Gamerized Dictionary. Yes?
It needs to be just a little bit
little bit closer, like this. Perfect? Okay. Okay, so broadly speaking, we can divide social emotional learning up into emotional skills and also social skills. This is the 6th time giving a very similar presentation to this. I've never gotten to social skills, so we'll be focusing just on the emotional skills part. Let's skip that. So, quick question to jump into the topic. What do you think it is like being an adolescent today? So adolescent, think about kind of upper elementary from maybe grade 3 up through the teen years. All right, so just talk to the people around you for about 2.5 minutes about this. What do you think it's like?
Parents who don't understand AI and technology, parents can kids a lot more. They feel they don't feel it, but maybe they do.
It's different, right? We are English now.
So I heard lots of discussions about technology there.
Yes.
Yeah, over here, information overload,
Yes.
something pretty big. Yeah, oh, like that. Thank you very much. I feel like I have to be Eminem with this one. This is weird. So yeah, what was something you guys talked about? Give me one. Yes.
Word came up as overwhelming
Overwhelming in terms of information.
in every aspect.
Okay, so very different from our childhoods, perhaps in some ways.
Confusing. Confusing, not just for the children, but for parents.
Confusing. Okay.
Because of that gap. They don't really know how to.
Right. Yes. It's probably a bigger gap than when us and our parents, right?
I don't even get it yet.
Yeah. Very nice. Okay. Yeah. Anyone think it's difficult? Hands up.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Most certainly. It is tough being particularly a teenager going through that year. The next slide. This was what PowerPoint kind of suggests, a bit of an infographic to go with your text. You put in the text and then PowerPoint suggests something. So this is what PowerPoint's AI decided should go along with this question. So apparently even PowerPoint and AI think it's pretty tough to be a teenager these days. Yes, absolutely. So a lot of the things I heard you guys talk about, we know anxiety and depression are rising amongst adolescents. Factors such as social media are a big thing. We hear a lot about the mental health epidemic. This is more of a buzzword in the West. Definitely very much happening here in Japan as well, although we don't hear that term so much. Through the teen years, there's a huge psychological development happening. So many things are happening in the brain, which goes along with, again, physical development, of course, hormones and all that sort of stuff. In terms of physical changes, until what age do you think your brain's still developing?
25.
Yeah, seems to be the common answer. I've seen even up to 30, 29, 27 or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Still working on it. Still working on it. Still waiting for the waiting for that to kick in. Yep. But certainly loneliness is also on the increase. A lot of kids will spend their time on social media just in their room rather than kind of interacting in the real world. Excessive demands. This is something particularly, I think, in Japan that is quite big, whether they're going to cram school. Eikaiwa, don't think that we're not part of that problem as well, because we actually can be in many cases. Grades, clubs, swimming, all of those things. And then a big thing also is just an inability to process emotions. So as they're so overwhelmed in terms of demands and developing, there is a struggle to process all this information and all of these feelings that they're going through. This is something that Brian shared in a presentation a couple years ago, which I thought was really relevant. This is a bit older, but in 2022, there was a record case of hikikomoris, or students that decided not to go to school anymore. It continued to increase. And a record-breaking 681,000 cases of bullying. So bullying also very much on the increase. This again from Brian, I thought, this makes me nearly want to cry every time I read it. But a survey was done across different countries. The question was, how much do you agree with this statement? I think I am a person of value. And in Japan, the agree or somewhat agree was less than 50%, only 44.9%. Other countries, it was a bit higher. So how sad is that, really, that our teenagers in Japan don't feel that they're valuable, don't feel that their life is worth living in some ways. Recently also, some of you who are in the same Facebook groups have seen one post about the suicide rate amongst adolescents in Japan. as well, and it's at a record high, and I think it was the #1 cause of death amongst children and teenagers. So some pretty shocking stuff. All this to say, there is a problem, and we are connected to this problem. So what role do we play in this? If you're an eikaiwa or an international school or whatever the situation is, what can we do on a daily basis? How can we actually affect or help with this situation? So here I'll move into emotional skills. So question for you. Here we have a not so happy young girl, probably about 13 or 12 years old. What is happening in this girl's brain right now? What do you think? Anger, yeah. Sorry?
She said.
Say it one more time.
Maybe sad.
Sad, maybe angry. But more, what's neurologically happening? What's happening physically in her brain? Rebellious, okay, yeah. I hear some murmurs over here. Firing neurons, okay, what kind?
Bad pipe.
The bad kind. Very good, yep, not the good kind. That's right. So yeah, in this case, the person is feeling extreme stress, the child is feeling extreme stress, and what are the responses to stress, the two responses that we have? Fight or flight, right? So that stress response of fight or flight comes from cortisol, thank you, cortisol flooding the brain. So when they're feeling upset or something happens, often this will create, well, it always will create a release of cortisol in the brain, and that's where kind of stress becomes a real problem. I'm not a scientist, sorry, but some kind of interesting things I think related to this. Very broadly, we can talk about the brain in two parts, kind of this lower brain and the upper brain. So this lower brain, the amygdala, the brain stem, hippocampus, hypothalamus, these are all active in the stress response. So when they're getting that fight or flight kind of response, these are the parts of the brain that kind of take over, if you want to call it that. The prefrontal cortex, anyone familiar with what is that responsible for?
Decision.
Yep, decision making, what was that? Logic, yes. Executive functioning, exactly. So all of those kind of really human things that we do. So we're going to talk a bit about self-regulation, and one of the things that we need to think about is how we can kind of calm down this and activate this, get our young people into the habit of not kind of getting stuck here and trying to use more of their rational thought. And there are some really good strategies for doing that, which I'll share in just a moment. Okay, so...
Game.
What's that? Games, yep, games would help, maybe. Yep. You've got an angry kid and just be like, actually, you know what? I've got a good example where a game can be used in that case, which I'll bring up. Thank you for that. Yeah, so some basic points here. I know this is a bit hard to read from over in the back, but yeah, problems arise when everyday stresses are interpreted as a threat. We know that stress is good, right? We need stress. If there's a fire in the building and you don't have a stress response, then, well, you'll have a problem, right? So we do need stress, but the problem is when everyday situations, everyday little stresses become interpreted as a big threat. Yeah, children and adolescents' brains are still developing. So as we mentioned before, the frontal lobe is still developing up until even in the late 20s. So with having a still developing frontal lobe, kids are still not able to process or deal with these different feelings. Disorders like ADHD or neurodiversity, if we can call it more broadly, also make self-regulation more difficult, but it doesn't mean we should give up on these students. If you have a student in your classes and the parents say, oh, he has ADHD, don't say, well, that's not my responsibility. He has ADHD, no, you know, I can't help. More so, this is a situation where you might want to practice teaching self-regulation strategies. Yeah, and the last thing that's really encouraging to me is that self-regulation helping to deal with your own emotions is something that can improve with practice. It's not something that you either can do or can't do. With practice, with guidance, kids can get better and better at this. And I've seen cases where the difference is quite amazing, actually. First, we'll talk about the stamina meter. So when we are full of energy, we're energized, it's much easier to deal with our emotions, right? What are some things that would drain your energy and make you more susceptible to stress? Okay, yep. Very good. That definitely would drain our energy in class. What was there one back there? No. Sorry?
Angry people.
Angry people in general, yes. Talking to parents.
He said marriage.
Marriage, I heard that. Yeah, that was good. Sorry?
With staff.
Dealing with staff. Yeah, let's think about kids. My wife. My staff. Yeah, okay. Yeah, what about the kids? For the kids, what would drain their energy? School, sure, just being, having to focus. Studying, test scores, good. Yes, please, Joy.
Friends, parents.
Friends, yeah, having issues with friends, parents. Very nice. Lack of sleep.
Video games.
Video games. I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Too much screen.
Too much screen time, possibly. Yeah, yeah.
My daughter felt stressed on Valentine's Day.
Ooh, okay. Why is that?
She had to give 80 chocolate brownies.
That's your
She
problem.
had to.
She got your genes.
My wife baked all of them.
Right. So his daughter had to give out 80 brownies on Valentine's Day, and that stressed her out. Yeah, for sure.
TikTok.
But you know, the point is that she felt she had to perform.
Social obligations, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very good. So all of these things can be things that drain our stamina bar. And if you're someone who gets hangry, I know I do. If I come home after work, I have no control over myself at all. I get snappy, irritable. So that's kind of this idea of the stamina meter. So why is this relevant? So we can think about two things broadly. What are some things that we can do to help maintain our students' stamina meter? And more importantly, how can we teach them to become more aware of it and be able to recharge themselves when they need to before things get too kind of serious? So for time, the first one's easy. Actually, give me 3 ideas for maintaining the stamina bar. What can we do to recharge our students?
Take a break.
Give them a break. Very good.
Sleep well.
Sleep well, yeah, that's a bit difficult to do for our students though, right? Toilet break, okay.
Eat a healthy snack.
Could be a snack, yes. Very nice, that's a good one. Yeah. Yes?
Give them choices.
Give them choices, excellent. Not have them feel like they're being controlled the whole time.
Sympathize.
Excellent. Sympathize, give them freedom. So some of this is a bit more obvious, so I'm going to kind of jump through that quickly. So your own energy level, making sure the demands you put on the kids are not too high, planning for shorter tasks with more feelings of success. Praise, as you mentioned, is on there. Yeah, sleep, exercise, diet. Routine and predictability for little kids can reduce stress. But for older kids, the routine can create what? Boredom, which can also, again, drain you, right? Oh, I have to sit through this again. We're singing the Hello song for the 1000th time or whatever. This can also be quite draining. Yeah, basically, in all cases, we should avoid punishment. Very difficult to do, right? Who sometimes uses punishments in class or negative reinforcement, right? Yeah. I would avoid it at all costs.
Students or your own child?
Good question.
For my students, I don't.
Yes, so we were talking about not using punishment, and she said for your students or for your own child? Ooh. Is it different?
Yeah.
But yes, I sometimes shout at my own child that I never do my students if I lose my...
Not
Yeah,
too harsh.
right. It's hard to avoid. Yeah.
Punishment isn't just shouting, right?
No, no. Oh, what do you want? Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. No,
Yeah.
I'm saying, I mean, in a parent situation, I mean, has to be some kind of
Control.
responsibility.
Boundaries, yes. But punishment, if-then type punishments, I think we should avoid it as much as possible, right? But okay, but these are, when it comes to self-regulation, it's important to think about these, but it's even more important to think about ways that they can recharge or become aware of their own kind of energy level. So for just 2.5 minutes, again, talk about ways that you can get your kids to become aware of their own emotional state, their energy level, and ways that they can get back their energy themselves. Don't talk for a long time on one idea. Let's brainstorm. Just pump out as many ideas as you can. All right, so talk together with the people at your table.
Not being around, changing, position. You're sitting over time and you stand up. Hold it. I want you to continue.
Yeah, for that. Even if it's just one of the particular
To explain to us
You guys have fallen quiet over here.
from our body, they don't have any respect.
Okay, let's stop for a second there. Okay, I heard some really interesting little sound bites I picked up here. Make them feel heard. This was a nice one. That was a common theme at a few tables. How can we make them feel heard?
Listen to them.
Go for it, yeah?
Like listen to your students.
Listen to them, yeah? But so go ahead, go, please.
Their responsibilities,
Okay?
like actually making them feel like they're valuable.
Giving them responsibilities, making them, that could go either way, couldn't it, right? If they don't want the responsibilities.
Choices, more autonomy.
Choice is definitely a big one for sure. Well, all of these things about, I mean, I heard people saying taking a break, taking deep breaths. What about giving them the option to choose to have that break, right? I think you mentioned something about that.
You want to say it because like it's start of you want to say you want to go back. So you may associate. So you can go, you can say in the room, but it's for like 2 options.
Okay, giving them the option to, is that between lessons or between lessons?
Yeah.
Okay. So she was talking about between lessons, they can have the option of staying in the room or the option of going out. Yeah.
Associate. Yeah, associate.
The teachers talk to them. Yeah.
And then after that, it's me because we have like lessons.
Right.
So we really can stop the lesson for like 45, like we have 25 kids. And of course, one is being historical, but we have Japanese association.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, give me a choice, one is there. But I want to go. And then after my 45 minutes lesson,
Okay. Sorry, I think it's a bit hard for everyone to hear you, right? Okay. Yes, so here are some different ideas that we could think about. We can actually talk to kids about regulation, get them to understand that they have this stamina meter. Often kids don't realize when they're tired. Actually, adults often don't realize they're tired. It's like, no, it's you. It's not, you don't go like, oh, wait a second, I'm hungry or something like that. So helping them to become more aware that that is something that they have. You might want to do this in Japanese, not in English, if your kids are not at that level. Sometimes, a lot of these things, if your students are at a lower level, you might need to actually do it using some Japanese. Have them rank their energy level from time to time. Notice it, and I'll go into some strategies for that in a second as well. Then there's a bunch of different kinds of breaks. A mental break, so a book, music, coloring. A physical break, doing some dance or some kind of sports or something like that. Sensory experience, something like sound, touch, involving movement. Not necessarily TPR, where the teacher's saying, okay, jump, 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 because that can feel a bit like, I want to have my own brain back for a second, right? Grounding activities such as deep breathing, meditation. Again, if they can choose, say, teacher, we'd like to do this now. Can we do the breathing thing? Then that's kind of putting it in their hands and giving them that strategy to use. Then social support. Whose classes are longer than an hour? Anybody? Some of you? If your kids are in a class for longer than an hour and they can only use English, do you think that that causes a bit, gets the energy level down? It can. Yeah, our kids are at our school often for 3 to 4 hours. But we do actually give them principled times when it's like, okay, Japanese is fine now. Because we used to be just never. You always speak English. And we realize that there is a bit of frustration that builds up through that. So letting them talk together and just share their, in their own language, talk about whatever they want, or even with you from time to time, I think is useful. This, if there's one thing you remember from this whole presentation, one of the things, practice self-regulation when the kids are fresh. If there's a kid having a meltdown, that's not the time to be like, do you want to do a yoga break or something like that? No. That's like, the problem has already happened. Wait till they're fresh and help to develop those skills when they're ready to develop new skills. Like any skill, right? You learn better when you're fresh. Okay, strategy number 2, emotional check-in. So we talked a bit about giving them a chance to kind of rank their own feeling. So let's go through this common scenario here. How are you? What is this child's response?
How are you?
Fine. Could be, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. And you, right? I'm fine, thank you. And you? Wonderful. So this is a great strategy. Now we know this child is totally fine. Right, so this is obviously something that we go through a lot, and it doesn't tell us anything, or the child anything about their own feeling. Try this. Here are 9 different pictures. How do you feel right now? Which of these 9 pictures would you say represents your feeling?
Number 4.
Number 7.
You're number 4. Well, you're always number 4, aren't you?
Number 9.
Number 9. Oh, you're very energetic and yeah, great.
Number 7.
I feel a bit like a number 6 now.
My wife is number 9.
Your wife?
If you look at the picture as it goes backwards.
Yeah, but it's a bit amusing, and if you show this to kids, they'll laugh quite a bit and they'll think it's a bit funny, but they'll really want to pick a picture. And it really does get them to honestly reflect on how they're feeling at that time. And it tells them how they're feeling. It also tells you a little bit about how they're feeling.
They start saying like, I'm cat, thank you, and you.
They might just do that, yeah. But there's some pretty weird animals here, like I'm the peaky owl. Yeah. If you're interested in using things like this, there's a website here that has like hundreds of these different versions so that they don't kind of get the same thing every day. And this is a nice website that has other similar content and some more information on how to do emotional check-ins. Great, so that's... Oh. Everybody got it? Okay. So moving along, let's look at one more strategy. So here's the situation. We're back to this young lady here, and she says, "This is stupid. I don't want to be Kenny's partner." Not that Kenny. It wasn't supposed to be him. It was a random name. "I'm not doing it." Okay. 30 seconds, talk together. What would you do in this situation? You're in a big class. This girl is saying this. 30 seconds.
Just go with it.
Okay, let's stop for a second there. And let's stop. Okay, so did anyone say this? Lyra, get back to your seat. You are going to work with Kenny. It's not a choice. Should I have to talk to your parents again? That's what you said? No? Okay, so what were some ideas you came up with? Accept the...
Validate the feeling.
Validate her feeling, okay.
Yeah, you're right. This is stupid, and given the time, why don't everybody choose their own partner?
Yeah, true. How about you?
But maybe if it's in the lesson setting, after the lesson, maybe pull her aside to find out what's the reason why she would want to.
I think you're close with it. I think validating her feelings, yes. Negotiating is also very dangerous, right? If you've got a lot of students and you go, okay, let's all choose on your own, then it's like they win, you lose.
Give options.
Okay? Give options, okay?
Could shift to a small group rather than partner.
Could do.
Okay. What's the first thing you would say to her? Yes.
Why? I want to know.
Would you be Kenny's partner for Rohya?
So why is what I'd say most people think that's a very reasonable thing to do? Why is kind of the second part. If you start with why, this you got to remember what's happening in her brain. It's full of cortisol. So everything that's said to her is like through the lens of threat, right?
This is the yoga part, right?
Well, wait, hold on there. Take them sailing. No, I'm just kidding. No, so basically when you say something like why or oh really? Why is that? Her experience of that is not this kind person trying to find out the reason. Her experience is it's like, woo! Stop right there! Why don't you want to do it with Kenny? Like it's like a police interrogation, right? You're feeling it's really scary. It's like having the interrogation lights on, and it's like more fight and flight most of the time, right? Sorry, that was really loud, wasn't it?
It happens a lot.
Trying to get your cortisol going. All right.
It's okay. It's okay. I understand.
Okay, yeah, you're getting closer with that. So I think the first thing you need to do would be to connect. Validate, somebody said validate the person's feelings. Yeah, acknowledge the way they're feeling. And then the second part of that would be more maybe going into why or trying to get them to engage that frontal lobe and go into problem solving mode. So step one, calm down the fight or flight. You just need to get the cortisol cleared out, get the anger, the fight or flight gone. Then we can go into problem solving. So here's an example. It never works as clean. You're going to go like, yeah, right, that wouldn't work, but it's an example. Hey, Lyra, are you doing okay? You seem upset. So acknowledging the feelings, connecting with her. Next, I know you like to work with Arisa, but it helps you to learn if you work with lots of different people. Do you think we can come up with a way to make sure we can do both? Let's talk more about it later. So engage in problem solving at this age would be the strategy.
Okay. So sit with Kenny.
You're still going to sit with Kenny, but I understand the feeling. We'll talk about it later. Let's come up with a solution together. Yeah. So this would be called connect and redirect. So you're going to connect with them first, and then engage in problem solving. And sometimes in a busy class, that needs to be done later on. With younger kids, Jan mentioned using a game before. This is something at my school. I'm often the person who gets called when this happens, when there's a child that's pissed off. Either the Japanese staff go, or sometimes I'm sent in, right? And I come into the room, and I'm like, hey, but you know what? I'm the principal. Scary, right? So often, if a child's sitting on the sofa in the lounge, looking really surly, like this, I won't go face to face. That's like you know, it's scary, right? I'll just sit kind of next to them, pull out a deck of cards, start playing with the cards calmly by myself, let them forget that I've come into the room even. And then after a while, maybe hand over a couple cards. Suddenly we're playing a card game. Cortisol is cleared. Then after a bit, it's like, hey, doshita. Then there's a likelihood that they'll actually share and talk about it. Before that point, no. It's like, yeah, doshita. It's like, dute, or just like nothing, right? Just complete shutdown. Yes.
The one thing you're assuming, like in that situation, you could be one-on-one with that student.
Right.
It's, if you're a teacher in a class of 60 kids or 8 kids, that's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I mean that's like an extreme meltdown situation where basically the child needs to leave the class, and then, well, it could be you, it could be a staff member, it could be anyone. Any time you have that really upset child, this is a nice approach. It could be drawing. There's lots of examples of ways to do it. One really important thing to remember about this as well. We started about 5 late though, eh? Yeah, is that. It's not just it looks like a strategy for solving a problem in the moment, but it's not just that. The more that you guide your children in ways to calm down their own stress response and engage in problem-solving thinking, the more they go through that, the more they practice that, the more that becomes a habit. So everything you practice becomes gradually more and more becomes a habit. And by bringing them through that process many times, perhaps, just maybe you'll be giving them that one strategy that really helps them to deal with stressful, difficult things that they encounter every day. Here it is. So last one, mindfulness. Who are my meditators here? Is there anyone who meditates? Are you sleeping or meditating? Hold on. He just closed his eyes already. So this can be really powerful if you have a class of students who are hyperactive, upset, stressed, sleepy, whatever, to kind of get them ready to learn. So I want to do a super short, it'll be just 2 minutes, little meditation with you here. And this is something you can definitely just try out with your students, and you'll find some really interesting results. Okay, so let's give this a try. First, we're going to start off with 5 very deep breaths. Don't start yet. Breathe in as much as you can fill your lungs, and then breathe out slowly and breathe out as much as possible. Each breath should take about 8 to 10 seconds. So not fast, it's got to be really slow. And go ahead. Now, just notice the feeling at the top of your head, the very top of your head. You don't need to do anything, just notice how you feel. Now gradually start scanning downwards. Notice how you feel in your nose, in your mouth. Notice any tastes or smells. And then keep going down through your neck. Down through your chest. Do you notice any discomfort or any spots that feel particularly pleasant? Keep scanning down through your arms and legs. And down to the bottom of your toes. Don't do anything, just notice how it feels in each spot. Next, notice how your chest or your diaphragm is kind of rising and falling as you breathe. Notice that place. Now try to focus just on your breath and nothing else. Now, most of you, your attention has already gone off your breath. That's fine. Just gently go back to your breath and try to stay with it. Again, if your mind has wandered, that's normal. Don't get frustrated, just bring it right back. Okay, and open your eyes. There you go. So that was 2.5 minutes. Anybody fall asleep? Do you feel any different from before we started?
Yes.
Yeah? It's something that takes practice. If you've meditated yourself, the first time you do it, you're like, I don't get it. But if you stick to it and you do it regularly for a month or something like that, you'll notice a significant calming in your state as you do it. If you want to use this for kids in your classes, feel free to just do the 5 breaths, or just do the body scan, or just do the focusing on the breath. You don't have to do all 3, but it's amazing how the room just kind of, the vibe of the room just completely changes after you do something like that. What it does do over time is it creates a bit of a space where kids, adults as well, can become aware of thoughts and feelings, but there's like a cushion. It becomes not like you need to react right away. You just kind of like, oh, I feel a bit annoyed at that. Huh. You just notice the feeling, but you don't kind of feel this impatience to react on it or whatever. Am I out of time? 1 minute for a video? No?
Sure.
Okay.
Make it quick.
I'm going to end with that. We started a bit late as well, so whoa, we're way over. You okay for a 2-minute video? All right, here we go. And I will not even talk after that.
A lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen, focus, and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there, and then I would just start tapping, and the students in the class would look at me, and they'd say, hey, stop tapping. A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, Clint, you have to stop tapping. It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, Kim, when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands. So I did. I went back to class and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, looked at me and he yelled. And he said, Clint, stay after class. And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me that I will never forget it. So I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. He walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, Clint, come here. I want to talk to you. And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, no, I need you to know something, you're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you. And he asked, he said, have you ever thought about playing the drums? And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer. From that moment on, I've never put those 6 down. I've toured, recorded, played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time, when somebody believed in me, and And he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
Thank you very much.